What's up, guys, and welcome back to Tech Plant. Today I'm going to show you how I grew a chocolate tree. Let's check it out. So this odd looking pod sitting here on this table is actually a chocolate pod, and this is where chocolate comes from. So inside this pod there are a bunch of seeds, or what we use to make chocolate, but in our case we're just going to grow them. We're not going to try and make chocolate in this video. So in order to get at the chocolate, we have to cut open this pod, but somewhat nicely. I pre-cut this because my family member brought me this and we were trying it because you can actually taste the pulp. But anyways, just make a nice shallow cut, maybe 1/4 of an inch around the whole thing, and then you can sort of twist it open. Don't cut too deep or you will damage the seeds. They actually look a lot different than I would have expected. They're really slimy and really weird looking and very slippery too, but they also have a very interesting taste. So if you do this, you definitely have to try some of them. Just pop them in your mouth and kind of eat the pulp off of the outside. It's a very interesting, almost sour, sweet flavor. Nothing like chocolate, more of like a fruity thing, because the chocolate is going to be the actual seed portion. So it won't taste anything like chocolate, but anyways, you got to try it. It's very weird and it keeps you coming back for more. So like most of my videos, we're going to try growing this a bunch of different ways. Again, I'm not an expert at growing these trees, so I'm just going to try a bunch of different stuff. From my perspective, we have about 3 different variations we can try. One of them is completely peeled down to the actual seed, so there's no peel and no pulp. Then we can remove the pulp off of some of them, leaving just the unpeeled seed. And then we can just try the lazy way, and that is just chucking one in there with the pulp and all, right into the dirt or into a bag and seeing what happens. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do some potted straight away and some in plastic bags. The peeled seeds are really cool looking, and if you don't want to plant all of them, if you have a chocolate pod, you can dry some of these out, or I think you ferment them first. I forget what you're supposed to do, but this is where you're actually going to get your chocolate from if you wanted to try and make it. They ferment this, then dry it out, and then grind it up. But it's a really interesting looking seed. I've never seen anything like this before, and it's definitely exotic and cool. Alright, so for the first part of the experiment, I am going to use potting soil for these guys. This time I am putting dividers in the pots, just because in some of my previous videos where I've tried to grow fruit trees, I just throw them all in there, then the roots get all entangled, then I have to cut them, people panic in the comments, and so this will just resolve all of that. In the pot with the 4 different areas to plant in, I'm just going to put the regular seeds in there that have been completely depulped and peeled. And then in the one with the single divider giving us 2 halves, I'm going to put one without pulp but skin and the other with pulp, skin, and all. And we'll see what they do. And we're also going to try and sprout some into a Ziploc bag with a moist paper towel. I know in my lemon video, a lot of people noticed I put way too much water in the first time, and that's what caused some issues. So this time I'm just getting the paper towel damp, and that should be all we need to do, and they should germinate in this bag. So only time will tell. We're just going to set all this stuff aside under grow lights and then see what happens. Alright, a total of 2 weeks has passed. Let's check on the progress and see where we're at. Alright, so checking on the 4x4 first, they already look really strange. It looks very alien to me. They're so weird looking. This again is the weirdest seed I've ever seen. So far it looks like 3 out of the 4 have sprouted up nicely. I can't tell if this is good because they look so odd, and again, I've never done this before, but they look like they're alive and at least growing and doing something, so I'm going to count this as good news. Looking next at the single divided pot, we can see very little action. The one with full pulp hasn't sprouted at all, and the other one that was depulped but still had the skin is starting to poke out. Not doing as well as the completely skinned ones, but it seems like there's still some action going on. Switching over to the ones in the bags, the completely peeled ones are doing okay. You can tell they're starting to sprout. There's a little bit coming out, but they're not looking so good. I think the humidity and the water and everything is causing a little bit of mold, and you can really see that one on the unskinned and the full pulp one. They have a lot of mold going on them, but I'm not really sure if they're really growing. Alright, skipping ahead another 2 weeks, I think we are at about a total of 1 month since we planted these seeds, and you can see the growth has been incredible. It's actually really awesome how far these have gotten. I did not expect this much growth this quick, but they're doing great. Let's look a little closer. The 2x2 grid one is doing fantastic. There are a lot of leaves on all of them, and we can see that the pod ends up becoming their first 2 leaves, although they aren't, I don't really know if you can call them leaves because they are weird looking. But the rest of the plant has continued to grow and all 4 have leaves. Some are a little further ahead than others, but overall they're doing fantastic. The leaves are shockingly thin, like thinner than computer paper. It almost feels weird. They're like crinkly and just super thin. Very interesting plants so far. Let's check on the other two. The other two have sprouted, which is good news, meaning if you don't want to peel them and put all that work into it, you definitely can get plants to sprout and grow. However, they're just a little slower, it looks like. It seems like the one with the full pulp that was on the sticker side of the pot is the slowest out of all of them. However, it's still growing, so that's good news. I still can't get over how weird and wrinkly that pod is and how it almost becomes little two leaves for the sprout. A very cool plant. Let's set these aside and give it some more time. Alright, 2 months have passed since we planted these seeds. Let's check them out. At this point, they're pretty indistinguishable. I mean, one is a little bit behind. That was the full pulp one. But for the most part, they're all doing pretty good. They're all growing and they all have green leaves. The 2x2 grid pot is doing fantastic. Lots of new growth, lots of beautiful green leaves. Again, they're for whatever reason papery thin and they feel super weird, but still really awesome to grow. Looking at the two odd ones that we planted, the full pulp and just the like depulped seed, they're catching up, they're doing good as well, and everybody seems to be pretty healthy. The full pulp one does look a little runty, but we had the same thing with some of the lemon trees, so I'm not going to hold it against it. Alright, about 3.5 months have gone by. Let's take a look at the progress and see where our trees are at. Overall, it looks like they are almost about 14 inches, about a foot tall at the smaller side, but they're doing pretty fantastic. I think for about 3.5-ish months. I do feel like they're a little exotic for my setup. Maybe they're not getting enough humidity or my watering schedule just isn't good for them, because they are seeming to suffer a little bit, but for the most part they're still growing and they seem healthy. At this point, I think the trees are getting a little big for their pots. I think they've outgrown their little divisions that they've been growing in, so we're going to take these all out and repot them up and just give them their own pots. Overall, growing these the last 3 months, I've noticed it's pretty difficult to keep the soil at their right wetness for them. With their real paper thin leaves, they can crisp up pretty easily, and even the top growths can get goofy for whatever reason. I'm not really sure what to do, but I think my setup isn't quite the best for them. I don't think it's humid enough. I'm only getting around 50% humidity, and it's pretty cool. Sometimes it's almost 55 degrees, sometimes 65, but I think it's a little too low for such a tropical plant. It's definitely been fun trying to grow these trees, and I definitely recommend if you guys can get a hold of a chocolate pod, you should definitely try it. Try and eat some first, but also try and grow them. They're pretty fun to grow, and I just think if you could feel their leaves, you'd think it's pretty cool too. I don't know why I keep harping on their leaves, but they're seriously paper thin. They're so weird. I have noticed that these really do love to attract mealybugs as well, which has kind of damaged the growth points on them, so really watch them carefully. Suddenly there can be a lot of mealybugs right at the growth tip, and it can really harm your plants. But overall, I think they're doing all right. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching this grow of these chocolate trees. If you guys have any recommendations or tips or whatever, leave them in the comments. I love learning from you guys. A lot of you have way different experiences than I have, or even more experience with certain topics. So I always appreciate to hear what you got to say. Well guys, that pretty much sums up this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing what a chocolate tree looks like, at least a baby one. It was a lot of fun to try and grow this stuff. It was a really cool gift from a family friend. And I hope if you guys ever get the opportunity to find one of these chocolate pods, you can pick one up and try it yourself. As always guys, may your plants grow strong and healthy. I'll see you next time.